how to grow endive. Now, endive has a reputation for being bitter, and to some extent this is true. It's very good for you though, and I love to eat it with a dressing that's a bit sweet, and it's fantastic in the autumn. For me, this is its biggest virtue. It crops really well right from late summer through the autumn, even into November, going on to December, outside without protection if it's mild. We also grow it under cover through the winter. So many options, and it's stronger in the autumn and winter than lettuce, which is inclined in the autumn especially to get mildew. And the leaves get much thinner when the daylight wanes, especially in October. And somehow these endives just keep going. So we're sowing quite late, and there's some which I sowed. You sow just by scattering seed thinly on top of a tray is one option. And a tiny bit of compost on top, but don't overdo it. The seed has only as much compost on top as the thickness of the seed, which is almost nothing. Just keep it moist. It's summer though when you're sowing endive. So in this case, it's August. What I do here is I'll keep that tray under the bench. And so it's out of sunlight for the first maybe 5 days. And then you see it coming up and you bring it up on top to have full light. And this was sown 9 days ago. These were sown exactly a week ago to give you an idea of how strongly they grow. And this one is Diva, which is a type of escarole endive. So you've got the two types. Escarole is the broadleaf, we'll see in a minute, growing in a bed. And frizzy is the serrated leaf, which have these beautiful, pretty leaves that are more bitter actually. The escarole types, particularly escarole gruna and Diva, two varieties, are quite a bit sweeter, I would say, than normal endives. So, you know, that mitigates a lot of the potential bitterness. And then the pricking out is exactly the same as for lettuce or anything. Just moving seedlings like that or lifting them out, just using a round edge tool and putting them in. I just make a hole in the pre-filled tray. So compost pushed in pretty firm, and I'm wiggling it in. You can see there's a lot of root here. Actually, this is not easy because I've left it too long. These would have been better pricked out 3 days ago, even at 4 days age. And that is what happened here, because that's from the same sowing, these and pricked out already. And you can see they're looking strong. And the advantage of pricking out is you get a full tray. So you could have a tray like this, make little holes, drop in seeds, 2 seeds normally, and then thin to the strongest. The slight disadvantage of that is you won't get quite such evenness, and you won't get all the trays full probably. There's usually 1 or 2 that fail. These are actually from home safe seed, and that always makes a difference. And you could use smaller trays like that. That's one of my 15. So these are the module trays I designed. And we're looking to get them from that stage to this, although it's different endive, it's the same principle, is no more than 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, these little 2-leaf seedlings can have grown into a plant that's more than ready to go outside. We already planted those 3 days ago, to give you an idea. So you've got a range of options, but in summer, I wouldn't want to leave them much more than this, because here you have a beautifully strong root system in not a lot of compost, so that needs to go in the ground quite soon. The longer you leave them beyond this point, the more check transplant shock there will be, and they'll take longer to establish. So we're now going to go up to a bed where I did a first sowing of the year, was on the 20th of June, and that's, I would say, the earliest, certainly the earliest I'd recommend to sow endive. If you sow them in the spring, they're going to flower. It's their flowering time is mid to late spring. So wait until that's finished. So in this case, around solstice, and then you've got the summer and autumn ahead for them to crop in. And if you sow later, like even now towards the end of August, that's about as late as I go for cropping outside. They won't get so big, but they'll be fantastic in late October, November, when they're really valuable. And then we sow again quite soon, actually, like maybe 5th, 10th September, to have plants ready to go undercover, like polytunnel greenhouse, to crop through the winter. And what I want to show you in the next sequence is options for harvesting, whether to let them grow really big or pick them leaf by leaf. So here we have the 2 types growing from an earlier sowing of 20th June, and these went in the ground on the 9th of July, in fact, the big escarole endive, and we haven't picked them at all, which is why they look so big partly. But they do get big very quickly. They're fantastic growers. And I'm going to harvest one right at the end as a head or heart. But before that, I want to show you the leaf picking option for endive, rather like lettuce, taking off the outer leaves. With the frizzy endive, it's not quite so obvious on the first pick. This is a second pick, so that makes it easier. The first pick, they're really on the ground. But you can see a difference here between, say, these two leaves really highlight it. That's the older and darker green outer leaf compared to the younger frizzy leaf. And if it's for salad, I would actually chuck that one out for compost, because they are quite tough. And one like that, well, that's marginal, depending. If you have a lot of leaves, I would recommend that you don't try and eat every single one, especially in the early part of pick, because what we find is when these plants are young, the leaves are bigger. And as they get older and we go into the autumn with shorter days as well, the leaves become more numerous and they become more tender, slightly more frizzy, going more like this. And this is also an indication, you know, how much you can pick. You could even pick that one. As we go into autumn, you get more leaves like that when you do the working around once a week, say. Really nice leaves. So I'm very happy with all of those. They can go in the basket. And then when we come to the scroll, this is slightly different because of not having been picked yet. There's quite a lot of rejects here. So I'm using the same method of removing the outer leaf, sometimes 2 or 3 at one time. For leaf picking, what I'm looking to do always is to detach the stalk of each leaf. I don't want to be leaving lots of leaf stalk attached to the endive's main stem. Stalks is what's on leaves and stem is the stem of the plant. So what we're ending up with doesn't really show at this time, but it's rather like with the lettuce. It becomes like a bit of a tree trunk, the stem, and the lower leaves you keep picking are always there for you and quite easy to detach. And what you're not doing is you're not leaving these bottommost leaves, which, as you can see, go yellow. And endive in particular, they're tight to the ground, they sit there, and then that's a signal for slugs to arrive. Slugs quite like endive leaves, but actually the bit they eat the most, I don't know if we'll see it here, is on the underside of these stems. In fact, no, that's amazingly clean because we've had a lot of dry weather this summer. But often you'll see little brown marks there, which is slug damage. And sometimes we'll just take that off and you've still got a nice leaf. But these leaves are a bit too big, so they're going for compost. Now we're getting to the nicer ones, which is ones like that. And if I take these off first, that was a bit big, that can go to compost. So I'm taking off the sort of middle section at this point, and then we're going to go in towards the heart or head, and then we have to make that same decision, how many to take before stopping the pick. These are the nicest leaves at this stage. Yeah, these are beautiful. Look at that. Just slightly yellow, which means a bit branched. Really actually quite sweet. Very pleasant to eat that as a snack on its own. You know, I quite often do. If we're out here first thing in the morning picking these leaves and I haven't had any breakfast, for me, this is one of the best starts to the day. So that's where I'm leaving that one as an example. And then finally, I'm going to get my knife. If I cut this, that's end of story. It's not going to grow anymore, so I'm slightly reluctant to do it, to be honest. What you could do at this one, you could cut higher. And maybe I'll do that. You'll still get the same effect of seeing the leaves. But what I'm going to do before that, I'm going to take off these older, slightly more yellowing leaves. And, here's a good example. Slug damage from the leaf being partly close to the pathway wood chip, a bit more slug than elsewhere. And so we've removed all that. That's looking good. Yeah, They're definitely potentially slugs here now. We're just getting rain for the first time, and that's typical autumn conditions. So if you didn't want any more endive, you could cut at that level there. If you want to repeat harvest, you could cut a bit higher, and that's leaving intact a very few heart leaves right in the middle, and they can regrow. So this endive, treated in this way, will regrow from a cut. Moment of truth, there we are. And what you can see in the bottom there, where I have cut, is the beautiful little heart yellow leaves in the middle. So they're the ones that can regrow. And then I'm going to show you what we've got here, which is the most gorgeous endive. There's one compost leaf. Yeah, look at that. So this is a nice note to end the video on, that what you can do with endive, you can get this effect. And I've done it several times in the past and had beautiful heads or hearts like this, and then come back a week later and they're all starting to go brown around the edge or rotting towards the middle. And that can be from lack of water. If you have a dry September, October, particularly September, you can lose them. So that's an advantage of doing the leaf picking. Plants that you keep small by regular leaf harvest don't need so much water. Whereas you leave them to grow like this, you just need to make sure you water enough. Endive love water, and they don't go mildewy, unlike lettuce. That's why they're so good in autumn. They just keep growing. They love damp, mild conditions. Have fun growing them. Don't sow them before summer solstice, and keep picking right until early winter.